But in a situation where you find that a look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that. Where you find that a look at the
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Daybreak on Trust Television, and we will now be looking at what the papers are telling us this Thursday morning, and we will start as usual with the Daily Trust newspaper. And on the cover of the Daily Trust newspaper, the major headline reads, "Military moves to flush out soldiers with divided loyalty." It has the riders says deployment of unmotivated personnel counterproductive. Directive would further dampen officers' morale, ward veterans. Move misguided, ill-advised, retire colonel. You find these and many more on page 4 of the Daily Trust newspaper. We'll have right beneath that the major picture on the cover, which essentially captures the moment two Chibok girls, Mariam Dauda and Hawa Joseph, with their sons, were rescued by the military after 8 years in captivity. Amazing, amazing. And they disclose, of course, that they have several others that have continued to remain in captivity. We have the major bed below the major headlines there. 20 of our mates still in Sambisa, according to the rescue girls. You find the details of the story on page 35. And the editor's pick there, we have kidnapped ex-Anambra lawmakers beheaded after 15 million naira ransom. That's a pathetic one this morning. Cholera kills 74 persons in 30 states within 6 months. I wonder if Ukraine, with all the wars, loses this amount of persons in as little time as we do. Yesterday, it was 7,000 women, dying to 7,000 maternal mortality in Ebonyi State, a state that is not at war today. We see cholera taking so much more. NGS sustained gain capitalization. As market capitalizations move up by 153 billion. And right below the nameplate there, we have governors, monarchs seek to influence PAMSEC appointment. This is according to head of service. And you find that details on page 38. INEC agreed to extend voters registration deadline. Reps committee chair disclosed. This is on page 14. And families seek justice for fuel attendant killed by Air Force officer. The way we take laws into our hands. You find that story on page 36. These are the major serve on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning.
The next paper we're going to be looking at is the Leadership newspaper, and it carries the major headline on the front page. Fear grips APC over gale of defections. Adamu runs to National Assembly. That is carrying the kicker aftermath of primaries. And Riders here says defections worrisome, unfortunate. More senators quit party for being denied tickets. And Wike meets with Obi Bala Muhammad. That is the major headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. INEC bows to pressure, extends voter registration. Details of that could be found on page 7. And when on the top of the nameplate there, judges' salaries, talks over suit against National Assembly, AGF, NJC collapse. Or attack, killings, kidnappings unacceptable, says President Muhammadu Buhari. 1,000 die in Afghan earthquake is another headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. And filling stations defy FG's directive, sell fuel above 165 naira per litre. That is for those who actually have access to it. Magodo residents raise alarm over invasion by land speculators. That is also another headline on the front page of the Leadership newspaper. And looking at the economy now, Nigerians spent over 40% more on palm groundnut oil in 1 year, says NBS. That is attributed to the National Bureau of Statistics. Well, these are the major headlines on the front page of the Leadership newspaper this morning.
Moving on, we will now look at the national economy, which serves a rather concentrated interest on stories revolving around the economy. And the major headline on the national economy this morning, its rise in food prices contradicts Buhari's claim of improved economy. We would all recall the president's statement yesterday saying that the country is doing far better than it did, than it was in 2015. As NBS says, prices of 2 kg pre-packaged wheat flour jumped from 785 naira to 1,060 naira. A bottle of palm oil increased from 593 naira to 847 naira in just 1 year. Above the nameplate you have, despite $80 billion investment, 35 million Nigerians still lack access to telephone services. That's some interesting statistics there. You find below the major headline, Senate to investigate Shell over alleged illegal oil lease renewal. That story is on page 4. Domestic foreign transactions on NGS hit 1.5 trillion. Interesting numbers there. CBN fought misleading report on payment of overseas tuition. And Owando resolves shareholders dispute, releases 2019-2020 results. That's been a running battle with the Nigerian the Securities and Exchange Commission, I beg your pardon, over crisis of management and all of that. It's good that that story, that crisis is coming to a halt, and the company can once again breathe some air of relief. These are the major headlines of the paper we had yet in the studio, and we will take a short breather. When we return, our guest analysts will be introduced to you, and we will dive deep into the issues on the front page.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve their sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Thank you for staying tuned to Daybreak on Trust Television. We have been taking the newspaper review before that short break. And we have in the studio our guest analyst for this morning, a public affairs commentator. And I'm talking about no other than Mr. Larry Oluwani. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio.
Thank you very much.
But before we get his insights on the papers, we'll quickly run you through a few other papers that came in a moment ago. And we have This Day newspaper with us in the studio. And the major headline from This Day newspaper this morning reads, Adamu meets senators, says he is worried by the gale of defection. That's according to the This Day newspaper this morning, and it has the following riders. Senators list condition to halt action. Two more lawmakers quit parties, 22 planning to defect soon, according to Fani Kayode. Soon, Fani Kayode raises alarm. PDP may soon form majority in upper chambers, Aduda boasts. INEC has power to reject Lawan Akpabio, Falana declares. And right there above the name tags, Moman, FG must deregulate downstream to address fuel supply challenges. Don't sell fuel above 165 naira. Ipman, adding top warns members, appoint consultants to recover debt. Nigeria's problem is distribution, not supply, according to Pengasin. You get all kinds of claim around the issues of this first Castile, unfortunately. And right below the name marks, Buhari, we won't let anyone put Nigeria under unnecessary religious stress. Says wicked people behind recent attack on churches, vow perpetrators will be brought to justice, urges Nigerians to come together in prayer against coward attackers. That's the much you can take from This Day newspaper.
All right, the next newspaper we're going to be looking at this morning is The Guardian newspaper, which carries the major headline, 2023, no place for placeholder, Falana, senior lawyers back INEC, and carries the riders. Like presidential candidates, VP nominees can only withdraw from race voluntarily. And suggestion that a VP candidate can be submitted at will is erroneous, says in this position. And then 2010 Electoral Act, where political parties could substitute candidates, repealed in 2022 amended act. Well, that's the major headline on the front page of The Guardian. Just below the nameplate there, a couple of stories also. INEC denies extending voter registration, insists June 30th deadline. Well, that's quite an interesting one. We've been seeing stories telling us that the deadline has been extended, and now INEC is saying otherwise. Oloja and Anyanwu others chart path to media sustainability. Kumuyi advises politicians on choice of running mates. Gunmen kidnap soldier's wife, 6 others in Chukun local government. Well, these are headlines on the front page of The Guardian newspaper. Proscription, IPOB product of injustice, Ohaneze replies Buhari. And Moman seeks review of single supplier strategy for petrol. Now, these are the major headlines on the front page of The Guardian newspaper.
And moving on quickly to the Sun newspaper this morning, just beside the name marks, we have US, UK, others won't ban IPOB, Ohaneze tells Buhari. And the major headline on the Sun newspaper this morning, it's voters registration, INEC bows, extend exercise by 60 days, plans deployment of additional machines, ad hoc staff. We have the second major headline on that paper this morning, subsidy to hit 6 trillion by year end. That is according to Ipman, says fuel supply drops by over 68% in 3 months. 2023, Wike Obi Mohammed meet in Port Harcourt. You find that story on page 27, and that's a belt on the Sun newspaper. That's the much we can take for the Sun this morning.
And the next newspaper we're going to be looking at is The Vanguard, which carries this major headline. Energy crisis, petrol scarcity to persist, says stakeholders. And riders are actually here. Pengasan cites bridging costs, says high diesel price, affecting trucking of petrol by tankers. And ad sale importation, inadequate funds, others can't guarantee supply. As Moman canvasses for full downstream deregulation, says inadequate supply responsible for scarcity. Another headline on the front page of The Vanguard, looking at politics now. Defections, we're worried but can't stop exodus, says APC National Chair Adamu. At the bottom of that front page, AGF asks courts to dismiss suit seeking upward review of judges' salaries. And tragedy in Ondo as flood sweeps away secondary school student. 2023, resist attempt to use social media to impede national security. That is a warning from the DSS. At the top of the nameplate, or above the nameplate there, 24 states get 477 billion refund for expenses on federal road projects, says the federal government. 20 missing Chibok girls still in Sambisa forest. This is attributed to the girls that were actually rescued. Strike, varsities reopen soon, federal government assures. Well, these are the headlines on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper.
And moving on to our last paper for review this morning, and that would be Nigeria's flagship, the Nigerian Tribune. The major headline on the Nigerian Tribune this morning reads, Defection, Panic in APC, Adamu pacifies senators. You find a picture of the APC National Party chairman and the Secretary Yulola right there by the Senate President on the front page of the Tribune newspaper, and you'll find the details of that story on page 2. We are disposed to extension of CVR, says INEC. That's also on page 2. Over 60 million involved in child labor in Nigeria. That's the size of some states in Nigeria, if you like. Recent attack on churches meant to cause religious stress. According to Buhari, you also find that story on page 2. 24 states got 477 billion refunds to expenses on projects. That's according to the federal government. Headless body of adopted ex-Anambra lawmaker found. That's a beautiful situation. Peter Obi Wike meets in Rivers. You find that story on page 33. NUT rejects Kaduna government sack of 2,357 teachers, threatening nationwide strike. Details of that story is also on page 2. And over 20 Chibok girls still in Sambisa. Sambisa forest, rescued victims confirmed. That's the headline we have this morning from the Tribune newspaper.
Lastly, we'll take a look at the Daily Champion newspaper, which carries this major headline. Ohaneze to Buhari, confront Fulani herdsmen with same might deployed to IPOB, says the Champion. And that's false president's call on Western allies to designate it as a terrorist group. Zulum in Cairo discusses Boko Haram at high-level forum on Africa and fuel scarcity. Moman advocates phased deregulation of petrol. Now, these are stories on the front page of the Daily Champion this morning.
That's the much we have as extra papers for you this morning. Like I said earlier, we have in the studio a public affairs analyst, Mr. Larry, who would help us, understand some of the issues on these front pages and build some perspectives around it. It's a pleasure to have you in the studio once again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We start as usual with the Daily Trust. The major headline here today says, the military moves to flush out soldiers with divided loyalty. And there has been all kinds of talk around it, with ex-military men saying the directive would dampen officers' morale, and some even saying that the move is misguided and ill-advised. At a time where we know there have been several reports around how these soldiers have not been provided adequate welfare or even warfare, to confront this crisis. How do you begin to explain what a divided loyalty is? I mean, is it enough for you to tell me to go and confront people with superior firepower with bare arms, and if I refuse, that becomes a divided loyalty? What's your take on this?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Nigeria we are very funny in this country, because how are they going to determine someone that have a divided loyalty? That's number one. What are the parameters? And that is not the issue. They should face the real issue and stop deceiving us with all these narratives. We have our armed soldiers out there that some of them have left their family at home for years at the battlefield. Some of them, they are not changing them. And that dampened their morale. Some of them, they saw their colleagues being killed at the battlefront. And their family at home, their widows at home are not being properly taken care of. Their children are not being properly taken care of. So, and they can hear all manner of stories how their leaders are working, taking some, a lot of corruption going there. So my advice to the military hierarchy is that they should rejig their system. That you find a way to boost the morale of these people, especially the lower rank officer. They should boost their morale, not to be telling them they can. For the first place that they make somebody to join Nigerian army in this country, he has already have a loyalty to the country and loyalty to the Nigerian forces. So what happened along the line? Something has happened. So they should look into it. What have we done wrong? So they should not. We are facing a lot. I don't want to dampen more on it because I've given a lot of story. A lot of interview, granted a lot of interview on security apparatus and the insecurity in this nation. So it's a sensitive matter that I don't want to dwell on, so that we will not look as if that we are not appreciating what they are doing. We like what they are doing. We appreciate them. They should just help us, because we are in a dire condition as far as this nation is concerned.
No, unfortunately, when you talk about the papers on Nigeria's situation right now, you can't really run away from the issue of insecurity, because it's everywhere. You know, a couple of days ago, we received reports that 2 Chibok girls were actually rescued after a very long time. And what they're saying is that we still have other girls out there that have been kidnapped with these particular set of girls. Is there any hope for these girls?
There is a hope. That is the only thing we will keep preaching. Because if there is no hope again, me and you will not be able to sit down here. So we'll keep preaching hope. We've been in this situation now getting to almost 10 years, to be realistic. And there are a lot of stories, allegations and counter-allegations. I'm privileged to live in Kano. After Kano, I'm privileged to live in Kaduna. I know I'm close to the... So I don't want to talk too much on that, because I know what so there are some things that is not good for us to be discussing out there, because it will keep, we can be so emotional about it. Because when you see the rate, they are killing our people. In one of the papers you read, it talked about Chikundo government about 2 days ago or so. That's the local government I know very well, which I also live in that part of local government before. So that will tell you how even my place where I was living before, it was invaded on January 10th this year.
But when you say you don't want to talk about it, how much of keeping silent is going to help the situation? Because I think we have endured the silence enough. It has got to a level where if you feel a pinch, you necessarily need to shout. Maybe because it's beginning to appear like our silence is being taken for granted, and therefore the government have a way of, because they have access to the media, every time they want to talk, the media is at their beck and call. It appears that that disadvantage in access to the media has made it look like our pains have been minimized. The reality on ground, like you said, especially in Chukun, is that people have even deserted their houses.
In my area.
Do you understand? It's a reality. People have moved to go and stay with relatives. They've shipped children away from the states completely.
Their own household.
In their own houses.
The house they built.
The truth of the matter is we can't continue to keep quiet, because that is a suboptimal living condition. Only heaven knows how they live with those relatives who are also struggling to cope with the current economic reality. Is there no end in sight? Is there nothing else we can do to reclaim our society?
Thank you very much. I've said it before, I will repeat it again. The only way forward is they should start looking into community policing. Because majority of all the attacks took place at the community level. And probably the information gathering, which is intelligent gathering, is not enough. And I am also aware of sabotaging, especially in Kaduna. Now, until we engage these traditional rulers and the state government have a serious meeting with them and seminars and trainings as well on security. Let me tell you, average Nigerians are not well trained about security.
Yeah,
To be sincere with you.
that brings me to this question, Ibrahim. If we have a military that is under-weaponized, if we have a police that is battling with welfare, is it community policing that would have the wherewithal to confront a terrorist group? That's where my concern is.
You know, where we need a community policing is they can easily identify
Okay.
who and who that are perpetrating this evil. I'll give you a case study. Last year, Governor of Kaduna State, he shut down all the networks for 3 months. Do you know what has really happened? That has helped them to get to know the Okada riders, the Keke riders that are carrying food to meet these people in the forest, that they are using to buy something or the other, or take money through them. So that has really reduced. So the issue that the unemployment rate is there, we cannot shy away from it. Lack of welfareism is there, we cannot shy away from it. But until we all realize that we need to have a strong community policing, but everybody will be saying is, where is the money? A state governor will tell you, we don't have enough allocation. There is no way you have a security problem and you now have economic problem. They all work together pari passu.
Yeah, because talking about community policing, I think we read a headline here that was talking about the members of the National Assembly trying to make moves to see that vigilantes are actually armed by the government. But just like Sunday pointed out, if we're saying that the current police force that we have now is under-equipped and the military that we have is under-equipped, then wouldn't we be adding more burdens on the lack of resources that we have by saying, okay, fine, well, let's arm these people so that they can be able to defend themselves?
Now, the issue there is that number one, we cannot shy away from corruption processes in those sectors. That's the truth. Because you can hear it on newspaper, there is no welfare at the police, they were under weaponized. There is a budget on all these every year at the National Assembly, submitted to the National Assembly through the appropriation bills. Where are the monies? Where are the monies? And at the same time, every state governor must able to think outside the box to generate more IGR. Because if you don't generate more IGR, you cannot sustain community police. You cannot even sustain state police that you are crying for. Because these are supposed to be under the state governor bill, not federal government bill. But the one that we, like you said, the one that we have on federal government bill, you want to tell me that they are not giving them money every year? Where are the money? So I don't want to go deep because I know, let me say I know nothing or little about some of all these things. I have a brother that is a police officer that he was shot at the point of duty, and for 1.5 years, they don't care how he was treated. Only what they can only give him is the award letter or ceremony, whatever. So I don't want to, and you like what you said, nobody want to talk about it. Yes, the reason why people don't want to talk about it, or we are public affairs analysts, is that this government have come to a level whereby when you touch some sensitive area, they will wrap it with the way that maybe you are insulting them or you are inciting violence. They will find one language to rope you. So everybody were like, okay, I have to be careful because I have my family as well to back on that are relying on me. So that is the reason. Until the government itself allow the people to have a freedom of speech. You can say anything you like on social media, but you can't say anything you like on this platform.
Interesting. Very interesting perspective there. I hope it gets to a level where we will begin to understand that this country belongs to us and not the leaders.
Exactly.
Because as citizens, our citizenship is not tenured.
Exactly.
It's the leaders who have expiry dates.
Exactly.
And when they are done, they will join us on this other side of the divide. And so we cannot give up on this country, essentially. I will move on to the next important issue for us this morning, and it permeates most of the paper, which is the position on the voters' registration extension.
Exactly.
One paper is saying they have extended, the INEC is saying we have not extended, the other paper is saying INEC has agreed they have extended. What's your perspective on this? Should we honestly extend this CVR, considering the kind of rush that we seem to be seeing across INEC offices in the Federation?
Yeah, if the people desire, because a lot of people have clocked 18 years old between last election and today. Some people are clocking 18 years yesterday. Even we're supposed to have a system whereby registration have to close either 2 weeks to election. That's the reality. Because there are some people that they will clock 18 by December. That means you literally
shut them off.
So, but a story here and counter story at the other side, it shows that it's a lack of leadership.
You know, but the INEC has explained earlier that because these cards need some time to produce, and the register needs some time to clean up so that they can remove incidences of double registration and all of that, that it's important this process finish some 5 months
before the election.
But like you said, is there nothing we can do?
There is a lot we can do. So why are we still operating like a monologue country? I don't rule the fact that we are third world nation and we are developing nation, but that does not cage our mentality. People should start thinking outside the box. They should start to go and get technology. If we can get, before in this country, if you apply for ATM in your bank, they will say come back in 2 weeks' time. But today you can get to your bank today and get your ATM instantly. Is that not innovation? Why is it when it comes to government things, they just make things as if is something that is difficult to do? You can find a way whereby you register now, you get your permanent voter's card immediately. And make sure it's available, those machines are available across the ward level. You conduct an election across the ward, not local government. So if you need to recruit more part-time staff, recruit them. What is the work of the NYSC people? Bring them into the system. They are collecting salary, doing nothing. Bring NYSC graduate students, bring them into the system. Deploy them at the ward level. Get a standard machine. Create more smaller offices at the ward level. It may be a detached office. Why are we just like to be romancing failure? And they'll come out with big grammar and tell you it takes 5 months, which 5 months? If I can get my ATM card, and the ATM card have chips as well. So what are you bringing to permanent voters card? Till now, I've not gotten my national ID card permanent card. Since when? Since almost 5 years ago.
Interesting. Let us move away from these issues and Ibrahim, take a look at the APC wahala with the gale of defection.
The current crisis that seems to be hitting the APC, because a lot of people saw this coming.
That's right.
When the primaries were about to take place, I mean, like we talked about this. Yeah. We knew that there are a lot of people that are going to be disillusioned or not satisfied with whatever it is that happened, and we thought that the party would have taken proactive steps to mitigate things like this. But now there seems to be an exodus from the ruling party as a fallout of those primaries. How do you think how does this affect the potential outcome of the 2023 election?
Definitely, it's going to affect not even election. It's going to affect our national development.
Okay.
In the sense that majority of this party don't have internal democracy. And that is one of the things the House of Rep people foresaw, that let's clink these on direct primary alone, so that it will be difficult for anybody to give delegate money. So when you lose on a popular demand, you will accept your defeat. But in a situation whereby a governor will sit down somewhere and begin to write names and say, this is and we have done primary, nobody will take that. That's what has happened in the majority of those parties. So it's going to affect us. Like in House of Rep, they have lost about 176 members that they may not likely to come back. And they were looking at it in legislative knowledge that if you have been in the House for like 2 times and you're able to come back 3rd time, it will help them on development nationally, because like a first timer that they will only learn his first 2 years he will be learning. So when we have a first timer like 200 in the house or 150 in the house out of 300 and something, that will tell you that those ones will just start to learn.
But could that be a reflection on the people that did not come back, that they did not perform well enough for the people to actually
if you don't perform, the issue there is that people say people are not performing. What are the parameters that we citizens set in place to check their performance? Is it by talking? Some people are not talking in that place, but they are doing a great job. That's the truth. Some people are not outspoken people. But in pen, in big sponsoring, in capacity building, they are doing a lot. So people believe that legislative work is about talking. No, you may not talk, but you have a creative idea and a bill that can help your nation and your community. You're able to sponsor it, and it pass through the first and second reading and until approval. So that doesn't mean that you did not perform. No. We should have a parameter to check if you're in your constituency that my leader, my senator, my rep member is performing or not. So it's not general thing. Because if my rep is performing in my own area, and you are looking at it in your own angle that this man always sit down, he doesn't talk. It may not be so in my constituency. So the issue there is we should encourage internal democracy. That's the truth. There is no internal democracy in all this party. So that people can see that this is a free and fair election. There will not be too much decamping and cross-carpeting, jump carpeting.
Interesting. I would get your thoughts in just 30 seconds. One of the papers, the Vanguard newspaper specifically said, we are likely to see this current fuel scarcity persist. Clearly, there's nothing happening to suggest that there's going to be a solution tomorrow or the day after. What's your perspective on that?
You know, the Pengassan people are saying the problem they have is distribution. On the other hand, some are looking at the cost, the fuel subsidy, and they want to, the federal government also looking for a way to remove the subsidy. So it's neither there, here, nor there. I can only appeal to the federal government. Anything they want to do, they should consider the citizen of this country, the less privileged. The people that if the price of the fuel increase, it will affect everything. You are talking about inflation in food prices already. So what are we going to see? So that is just, I can only appeal to them because you cannot, these people, you can't get their real story. Begasa will be talking his own, Labour will be talking his own, federal government will be talking his own. They just put out in the middle. And they will tell you, no, it's not our fault. It's international market. The crude oil has changed. The price high at the international market, as is high in international market, we are losing in Nigeria. So I can only appeal.
Interesting. We can only appeal. As one of the lawmakers says in Kaduna, we can only pray. I think it has come to the time where all people of all faith would have to approach their God and bring this situation before his tables. Apparently, it has defied every political solutions as known to man. We've been talking to Larry Oluwani, a public affairs commentator, who has given us perspective this morning on the newspaper headlines across major national papers this morning. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Thank you.
We look forward to when you join us again to share those things you don't want to talk about.
Thank you.
We will take a short break, and when we return, the show continue. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that a person look like the same,
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that